Is there anything that sticks out with you that worked well for you? One of the games, the drills, the sequences, whatever.
Well, transition games I think work the best because they have to think and make breakout plays. You don't do a 2-on-1 and then the puck dies. You do a 2-on-1. D's got to get the puck, make a pass, and it goes the other way.
Yeah.
And you can alternate that. A D jumps up or forwards back check. And so transition games by far the most effective system I used was is the torpedo, but you got to recruit. At Mount Riley got to recruit players, right? So that the left back and the torpedo's got to be, it's kind of half. It's like the midfielder in soccer.
Yeah.
Got to be like good defensively, but also be able to be pretty good on offense. Because it's a really well balanced way to play. But I don't do that with kids because it restricts. You do that when you're getting paid to win.
Now, over the years in the NHL, they've tried to pair an offensive defenseman with a defensive defenseman. Is that the same? Or is it the
torpedo?
No, I'm just saying, if you're using a torpedo, you've got to do that. But I'm just saying today in the NHL, is everybody going to
that always take
one a defensive type and an offensive type, or 50-50 of each, or is it that big a deal?
My idea with the torpedo, I had one girl that was all-star 3 years in a row, played right D. The right D is an offensive player because they joined the attack.
Yeah.
They're on their side, basically part of the 3 players in there. The left wing has got to be a really good defensive forward, but they also join the attack on their side. And then the left D is a stopper, the fullback, like in soccer.
Yeah.
They're always on the puck side, so they get lots of 1-on-1s, 2-on-1s, and they, like Terry Johnson, when he got traded to Calgary from St. Louis, they put him with Paul Reinhardt because they needed a really good defensive defenseman, and he played the left side in it. Because Calgary did that left wing thing with Bob Johnson. They went to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they basically used a torpedo. You call it all kinds of different things. So yeah, you really have roles in a torpedo, and then your 2 forwards, your 2 torpedoes, can be really good offensive players. Their only job defensively is to cover the points. Get back hard, come to the slot, and cover the points.
Yeah.
So it's if you got the right players, it works really well. But like I said, in college, I recruited the players, so I brought players in for certain positions. And we won over 5 years, 71% of the games, and we're in the finals for the 5 years.
Was that because you of the torpedo, and you were able to recruit players that fit the model?
Yeah, a lot. I had just had players that suited that style.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you're picking kids, and I don't. I used to use it with the Flyers. We did pretty good. That's when there were 3 AAA teams.
Yeah.
So it was, you weren't going to win the provincials with that group, even though the one year we upset the team that only lost 2 games all year. But then this team took my best player out, and so we lost the next round.
Tom, I remember you were coaching Bantam U15, I think, one year, and I think you used the torpedo that year. Do you remember with the Royals?
Yeah, we did.
What was your take on that year and that system? Did you do it because you had the good type of forwards or the good type of D that could play that fullback position?
Well, we had, I had that little guy that's playing the NHL now,
Yeah.
He was a really good offensive D. No, it worked really well. We outshot every team, outplayed most teams, but I had one goalie that let in 1 out of 5 shots, another goalie that let in 1 out of 7 shots. So we had to give up 20 shots. You got 5 goals or 4 goals against you, so you had to score a lot of goals to win games.
Yeah.
So it was that was incredibly poor goaltending that year. But then the one kid ended up playing major junior for 3 years. That was his second year of goal.
Yeah.
So he was lost in the net, but he was a good athlete. He learned how to play goal and became really good. But the other kid played, I think he went back to community and played level 4 the next year. But I took him because the goalie company said he was good. And I said, well, geez, I'm seeing letting goals from outside the blue line. And they said, oh, no, he's really good. But the danger of getting a company is that they promote the kids they train so they can brag that they're all playing AA and all this. And they're not always truthful. So that's what happened that year.
Tom, the GHC is looking for a U13 AA female coach. You have any ideas?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I think Emily would be really good, but I don't think she has time. She's still student teaching and all that stuff. I wouldn't like to lose her, but I mean, she would. I don't really know. You know, I can't think of anybody that wants, that I know that wants to give up that kind of time. Like Jim Curry, I play hockey with him. He'd be fantastic. He coached the Hitmen there and stuff. But I don't know. I don't think he wants to give up that much time.
Time's the biggest thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a huge. Yeah, it's humongous. I mean, you're giving up in this Bantam, it's 5 days a week. You get 2 practices, 2 games, a dry land. Then there's sometimes there's other things that happen too, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't really know. There's probably young guys looking for a team out there, or girls.
Well, there was a number of fathers that assisted, some of which could have, are capable of head coaching in terms of game knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think they're really wary because of the time commitment. And it's unfortunate, but that's sort of what you compete with when you get sports schools and they've got full-time coaches. They've got the time because they're full-time.
Yeah.
And I think that's we've got the people that do coach in our system. They're full-time coaches like yourself. You don't have much to worry about, but I always seem to go back to, as a school teacher, I found the time. I could work the schedule out in terms of practices and games, and it was possible. But you
That's
really,
why I went back to junior high.
Yeah.
Because in high school, I wasn't the department head.
Yeah.
So they told me when I practiced.
Yeah.
So I really coach hockey. So I go to junior high and I did the same. I had my school practices that allowed me to do the other practices. I practiced.
How many years were you teaching before you started to coach outside of the school?
Well, I taught Calgary Catholic for 29 years. And then I took early retirement at 55, and the Mount Royal women's job was up. I interviewed and I got that job. We just won provincials 3 out of 4 years with Jim's teams. And I just, and before that I was helping coach University of Calgary men for 8 years. So I got the job at Mount Royal and did that for 5 years, and I taught at Mount Royal too. And then the Red Bulls called me. So
you coach, when you coached at SAIT and the University of Calgary and Mount Royal, you had retired from teaching, or finished?
No, I coached at SAIT in the 80s, but I was teaching at St. Greg's.
Yeah.
And then I was assistant coach at UC for 8 years. And I was teaching at that time through the 90s, for 8 years in the 90s.
Yeah.
I was teaching at that time. But they practiced at like 4:15 or something like that. So I'd have morning practices. And I think the game night, I didn't go to UFC. I didn't go on Tuesdays, I think it was.
Yeah.
Coaching coaching school team. So I worked it out that I could do both. And then after early retirement, then I went to Mount Royal, and I was a head coach there. I was head coach at SAIT for 3 years too, but I was a head coach at Mount Royal, and I taught the coaching class. That's what I was doing for my job. So, and then the Red Bull called me, and I went. Well, I always wanted to do that, so I went and coached there for a year.
Did they call you, or did you have an application form that you sent in, or
Called me out of the blue.
Transpire?
They did a search, and they identified me as one of the top skills coach in North America, and I think it's because of stuff I did at the Edge. Well, first of all, they knew about Danny Heatley and Mason Raymond and Jeremy Colleton, and then at the Edge, 2 of those guys were drafted in the first round, and somehow they associated me with that, and they offered me. They said they identified 4 guys in North America, and I was at the top of the list. It was my job to take or not take, so I took it. Kathy, I'd been offered things in the 90s, but no, Kathy didn't want to go. None of the kids wanted to go. So all the kids were left home. And she said, well, go for a year. You've always wanted to do this, so I did. So that's how that came about. And it was a great experience.
Of all the extracurricular experiences you've had, what was your best and why?
Well, that was a great experience because I was working with coaches from all over the world, and like Paget, who worked the NHL for a long time, and Vladimir Yursinov, who was coach of Russia. You don't get a chance to work with guys like that very often. And it would have been perfect if Kathy was still working, and so she didn't go, because it would have been absolutely perfect if she would have gone. But as far as the coaching, and that was, an absolutely beautiful place, and traveling around Austria, driving through the Alps for games, it was like a tourist bus, So that was pretty darn good. What about you?
Pardon?
What about your experiences? What are your best ones?
I learned the most from all of my teaching experience, because when I was coaching in high school, I was involved with the national team with Dave King, And I really always got in touch with the coach education program. So I got exposed to things that I never would have been because Dave sent me to those seminars. It's sort of like you, all the worlds you've gone to and all the speakers you've sat in on, and probably, like Bill Beanie and his small area games idea. I'm sure your first encounter with him might have had you go to a more game like approach, and it reinforced transition, which is the game. Decisions will occur within those moments.
I think I got that more from Johanny and Erka.
Okay. Well, you were talking about your favorite drill, Tom. And I have to say, working with you, and we did Urka's continuous 2-on-1 drill.
Yeah.
I remember the way Urka drew it up. There was a 2-on-1 with a direct attack, and the two wingers that were going to go the other way were waiting at the top of the circle.
It was passive.
Yeah. And so it was 2-on-1, get the puck to the winger, and away they go. And I think it was with you that we talked about and maybe experimented with having those wingers not sit and wait, but I know I had them go into the center circle and then back check through the middle to make that transition. That was the first phase. And in other words, it wasn't just a 2-on-1 and when you get the puck to your standing stationary forwards attack, it was come back and help your D. So you're doing transition from defense to offense going the other way. That was the first phase that, and I think I was picking up on that when I worked with the national women's team, but it didn't happen overnight. It was like a few years where I said, oh, this is a European drill. They don't work on transition.
Well, I saw Erka do it.
Well, they didn't bring the guy back into the D zone. He stood and waited.
Do that too.
Yeah.
I saw, like, the first one is passive and you get the flow, right?
Yeah.
They're waiting there and it's a new 2-on-1. It's basically, but then I also saw him bring the guys in and cover him because I went to Finland and he brought me there 3 summers. So we talked about, I don't know if I saw him do it or he, talked about it. And then, he did that too. It's kind of a progression. And then you can have, one of the D join the rush too, or one D join the rush and one forward back check. You can do all kinds of permeations of it. Yeah. And I did that all the time I was at Mount Royal. That was probably a good deal of my practices at Mount Royal were transition games.
Like I thought Urka's 2-on-1 continuous was the best drill ever. As the third phase is what you just said. The D doesn't stand in the neutral zone and wait for the rush. The stage is that D can keep the puck in play at the ringette line or lower, and they can actually join the attack.
Well, it basically becomes a scrimmage that the players are rotating in.
Yeah.
There's no whistles, and the beauty of transition games is you're no longer the traffic cop blowing the whistle. You can stand at the, get the defense, your defenseman coach to stand with them and forward, and when they come back, ask what happened there, or why'd that work, or talk to them when they come back. So it frees you to coach.
Yeah.
And if you keep score, it ups the intensity. So that's the beauty of transition games, but they're the least used things I see in Canada. And I didn't see a lot of them.
Yeah.
Pierre used some and Rail used some, but when they had me run part of the practice for the pro team, I always used a transition game. because they were already doing terrific drills.
Yeah. Well,
I just sent you 4 drills that I just did this week.
okay, well, Thomas's continuous 2-on-2, that's a continuous transition drill related to neutral zone. And it became sort of a feature drill with most NHL teams that Thomas worked with. And I think he worked with 4 or 5. And some of them added it to their pregame warm-up drill or their pre-practice drill. And the players just love it. And, having worked with GHC the last few years, that drill is something that I feel just would help players and the coaches appreciate transition and the natural figure it out element of when to pass, where to pass, how to support, think the game. It's game-like, period.
Contrived as most drills are, right? Where the
Yeah.
coach, you do this, you do this, you do this. No, you create the situation, and now the D, everybody's got to read the play to make it happen on both offense and defense.
Yeah.
And usually, like what I do is I add dump ins to it. You don't pass to the D, but you dump in, and maybe you say how much pressure you want them.
Yeah.
Maybe a half pressure, so they're there and the sticks are in the lane, but it turns into a transition game if you make it full out. Basically, it's a 2-on-2 continuous. So,
well, you asked me what was a favorite drill. And when I coached the major junior league one year, I was doing deliberate regroups. Typical D to D to the middle or quick up or whatever. And then eventually I thought, I'm going to just go in there and make them think. And I would pressure. And when I did that by myself, it wasn't the players pressuring, it was me. And it worked. In fact, our team played the games better after that. And I've always noticed that if you do something game-like in a practice, that it will show up in the game. And that one drill, with me providing a resistance, had a huge payoff. I just saw them think, figure things out, do things instinctively, apply their skills, make great decisions.
Yeah. Well, if you take away, maybe you take away the center, then they pass a wing.
Yep.
Take away the wing, and they pass the center.
Yep.
And that makes them think.
For the people that listen to this, I'm thinking last year of every one of our coaches at the U18 and 15 levels, and even the 13 levels would benefit from transition drills and games more than deliberate drills. And Tom, I have to share with you, watching spring hockey this year, I only went to a couple of each team's practice, both U15 teams, and the first part of their practices were drills. And this time of year in the spring, they've had enough drills. But when they went to games, small area games, the players looked really good. They got excited.
Yeah.
And I thought it was real purposeful practice.
I don't think they always have to be small area either. They
Yeah.
be full.
No, I agree with you, but at least the game, you got decisions being made.
Oh, yeah.
In practice. So I sent a text to each of the coaching staff suggesting to don't do any deliberate drills, just play games. And I should have added the word transition games, because really games are all about transition.
They are, but I think the start of practice everybody needs to handle the puck a little bit. The goalies need to get some shots. So that's the purpose of them, is you don't spend that much time, but just like before a game, you have a warm up, right? You don't just start the game when you step on the ice.
Yeah.
So maybe you take 15 minutes to do different things, and then go to games. And one thing that people do not do, and this is something that USO really pushed, you have tournaments, and you make teams, and you have tournaments, and they play each other, and and you keep track of the tournaments. So you can have 3-on-3 tournaments or all this, this sort of thing. And I picked up when I coached with Brent there at SAIT. He had the Russian scrimmage and the power play game that I use a lot. And the Russian scrimmage, you blow the whistle so many times. If you blow it 3 times, 3 players jump out from each team. And the team with the puck, when the whistle blows past a player coming on, or you can have them pass back to the goalie. And then on the power play game, they take turns having these outnumber situations. So you start with one team's got the power play, so they get a 1-on-1, then 2-on-1, then 2-on-2, then 3-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-4, 5-on-5, and you can even do 6-on-5. Practice that, and then the other team gets their chance, and you keep score. And I find that really a good, that players compete really hard in.
So you use the term power play practice, and then you went into 1-on-1, 2-on-1.
Well, the one team is the one that gets the outnumbered situation, so it's just a name for it.
They have the advantage.
Yeah, they always have the advantage, and they go through all those situations.
Yeah.
6-on-5, you have to have lots of players.
Yeah.
And they go through those situations. You keep score, and then the other team gets it, and you keep score, and it's a game.
Yeah.
It probably takes 15 minutes, but they really work hard when they play it.
Yeah. Now, I'm just wondering, generally speaking, coaches are conditioned to structure. And traditionally, they'll practice 5-on-0 power play structures and puck movement. And then when they practice, they might do the same. What you've done is you've taken outnumbered situations. You always have a man advantage. And you're figuring out how to use that time and space and create it and use it. That makes sense, but it's so difficult for people who've coached all their lives a certain way to suddenly just use a game progression like that. It's almost like, and maybe even parents say, well, you're not practicing power play. And the pressure sort of ripples down to where you end up doing a static.
Well, I think you do all that. You do the static just so that they know what the options are, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not born with this knowledge.
Yeah.
You prioritize knowledge that a lot of people think people are born with this knowledge. You do that, but you don't, after you've done it, you don't have to keep doing it. I think one of the best things I saw the Flames doing it, and then the U20 team was doing that 2 summers ago, is one team gets an offensive zone face off. They go through maybe 30 seconds of options. Maybe they're doing the power play, but they could be doing, the forecheck and cycling and stuff too.
Yeah.
And then you blow the whistle, they dump it down, and they go back to get the puck breakout. And in this situation, penalty killer, the 4 penalty killers jump out and they force, and then it's full on for maybe 30, 45 seconds, and they play 5-on-4 under, both teams are pressured. And then you go through and you just rotate. The other team gets a face off at the other end next time, and they
Yeah.
get the. And you can practice not only the power play, but you can practice. Like I was saying to Jim the other day, I said it's a great way to practice face-off plays. So
Yeah.
everybody, so go and run a face-off play for 30 seconds so everybody understands it. Then dump down and play 5-on-5,
Yeah.
and the other team get it. It's a great way to teach that intermittent learning is the most powerful. If everybody's focused for 30 seconds, they learn a lot more than